I'm actually pretty proud to say that most of the books that I purchased were workbooks. So according to bookish girl math, they don't even really count because they went to the office. What up, Search fam? Sade here. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new, my name is Sade. I'm out here curating and co-creating a cool ass life. And it's time for the second quarter book haul. Now, whether you are new here and this is your first time coming across my little corner on the internet, or you just keep coming back, but you have not joined my internet family, might I suggest just hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and be made aware of every time I post a new video, which is usually on the weekend. Now, I know I'm a little late. It's end of October, but you know, that's neither here nor there. We're here. And actually this quarter, I'm actually pretty proud to say that most of the books that I purchased were workbooks. So according to bookish girl math, they don't even really count because they went to the office. But anyway, we got a stack. We're going to get through them. I'm going to try to make this as speedy as possible. So I'm going to start with, I guess, one of the fiction books that I got per me personally. I have talked about this before in some of my last monthly book reviews, and that is the Bonds That Tie series by Bree. Now, it is one of my favorite dark romantic why choose reverse harem books, and I'm starting to collect the physical copies because I really do love the series, and I'm probably going to bind them myself, which is going to be a thing. So thoughts and prayers for when I do that. So I did get the first 3 books, and that is Broken Bonds, Savage Bonds, and Blood Bonds. Now, for those of you who have not heard of the Broken Bonds series, it is pretty much a cult classic among book girlies in the internets, and it is about this magical society that creates these multiple person relationships that are sort of drawn together based on powers, and they're called bonds. You have a central bond who pretty much holds everybody together. They strengthen all of the mates and are strengthened by them and all the things. So our main character, Ollie, is 19. She's been on the run for 5 years because all her family died, and her gift is not a great gift. It's one that could get her killed. And so in her bonds, because the magical society is very bureaucratic, just like everything else, and there is a resistance to that, but it's not in a good way. You feel me? And so she's been running from her bonds, and her bonds happen to be like, one of them is one of the council members, his brother, his best friend, who's like the head tactical security person, and then 2 others. And one of her bonds is actually from one of the wealthy families on the East Coast, because this is set in like Oregon. And baby girl, she runs, and they find her, and it goes awry. The first 3 books have me cussing because I hate everybody. But she can't deny them anymore, even though she tries to, and they're trying to keep her, and they're so pissed because she ran, and they don't understand, and she can't tell them because she was a prisoner to the resistance, and like all the things. So this unravels over 5 or 6 books. And so I have to get the other 3, and then probably next year I'm going to bind them into really pretty copies for myself. But I am rereading them as well in the physical copies, and that's been a fun time. I also got this book, which I talked about in my fall TBR, which is Let the Dead Bury Their Dead, which is by Randall, Kenan. And this is a book of short stories that is rooted in like hoodoo and conjure, set in like the Carolinas and things like that. And this is one of my books that I'm supposed to be reading for Hoodoo Heritage Month. I have not cracked it open yet because I'm reading other things, but I saw this on another bookstagrammer, or even just a black book reader, and they were talking about this. I was like, oh, this sounds good. It was published in the 90s. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get this one, and I'm very excited to read this. And I think, like, for me as a writer, I really want to get good at short stories. I'm not at the moment. Like, they always turn into novellas. So I'm hoping that this will also help me to see how people are more succinct in their short stories. Y'all don't hear me talk about this. I don't even know why we're surprised. I got a copy of Katabasis or Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. I got a pretty copy from Books A Million. See if it'll focus. Oh, there's my face. Okay, it's not gonna focus. There we go. Check it out. Yeah, so we know what this is about. This is a Dante's Inferno retelling that is centers two graduate students who go down into hell to try to rescue and see what happened to their doctoral advisor who's gone missing. But it's because the main character accidentally killed him. Spoiler alert. But that's at the beginning. That's in the first 2 chapters. So then we gotta find out why and what happened and things like that. I started this, but again, I started reading other things. So I'm probably gonna pick it back up in November. We know how this goes with me. All right, now to the things. I got a copy of The Conjuring of America, Mojo's Mermaids, Medicine, and 400 Years of Black Women's Magic by Lindsey Stewart. I am... I'd say about halfway through. This is the book I've been reading this month in my my devotional time, and it's pretty much about hoodoo and conjure, which is an American based magical system that is closed practice for the descendants of enslaved persons that were in the United States. And this talks about that and how it is deeply intertwined with America's history. Because I think the thing about American history is that we learn a very small bit of what actually went on, what actually America is. And the sort of sad but real truth is you can't disentangle who and what America is without the period of enslavement. And so much happened, and black folks, black women contributed so much to American culture and the diaspora and things like that. So I really am enjoying how this is highlighting those things and how it's deeply intertwined with hoodoo as someone who is a practitioner, which is why I'm reading it during Hoodoo Heritage Month, because it's helping me to just like be in the vibes and, you know, all things. So that is what I'm currently reading. I'm having a great time. I got a copy of Nella Larsen's Passing, and Quicksand. I got a copy of Nella Larsen's Quicksand, and I do have a copy of Passing somewhere, because this is a Black classic. Nella Larsen wrote during the Harlem Renaissance, and she writes about race and gender, and this is a novel, and I'll read you the back of it. And it says, born to a white Danish mother and a Black American father, Helga Crane has long struggled to carve a path for herself amid the racial segregation of the early 20th century. As a teacher at an all-Black boarding school in the South, Helga quickly becomes unsettled by the way the school measures excellence based on a proximity to whiteness. Journeying to Chicago, Harlem, and Copenhagen, she attempts to thrive free from the constraints of category: mother or wife, promiscuous or chaste, white or Black, American or Danish. But these categories, though slippery and unstable, are constantly reinforced. Helga finally settles into a life that feels secure yet completely at odds with her previous ambitions. Married to a preacher in the Deep South, hoping to find peace under the wings of the church. Landing back where she started in social and existential oblivion, Helga forces us to consider, in a society marred by injustice, is it even possible to find a true, authentic self? With intriguing parallels to Larsen's own life, Quicksand is an engrossing page turner that is as relevant now as ever before. So yeah, it's actually not that long. I don't think Passing is that long either. And I think in the times we're in, it's just really important for us to have physical copies of our classics, especially Black classics. And yeah. You got to. Which means I also got a copy of The Red Record by Ida B. Wells, which is about the examination of racial violence in America in the late 1800s. For those of you who don't know who Ida B. Wells is, she's an investigative journalist that wrote extensively about lynching in America. There's a whole bunch of things about Ida B. Wells. She's actually that girl. So if you haven't read or read about Ida B. Wells, you need to stop and do that. Do that today, in fact. I also got a copy of Working Cures by Charlotte M. Fett, Healing, Health, and Power on the Slave, Southern Slave Plantations. And again, this is for me both research and part of like my study as a hoodoo root worker, conjurer, whatever, because it talks about how enslaved persons incorporated medicine and medicinal practice without what we understand as modern medicine. Like modern medicine sort of bases itself, especially pharmaceuticals, on herbal medicine. So I'm reading about how those things sort of came to be in enslaved communities because we had to heal ourselves. There was no going to the doctor. So academic book, also personal book, but it lives in my office. I got a few books just in the vein of like coming Hoodoo Heritage Month. And then the other is Misbehaving at the Crossroads by Honorée Jeffers. And so I'm going to read the inside of this for you. Honorée Fanon Jeffers is at a crossroads. Traditional African Black American cultures present the crossroads as a place of simultaneous difficulty and potential. In contemporary times, Kimberly Crenshaw coined the phrase intersectionality to explain the unique position of Black women in America. In many ways, they are at a third crossroads, attempting to fit into notions of femininity and respectability primarily assigned to white women, while improvising strategies to combat oppression. In Misbehaving at the Crossroads, Jeffers explores the emotional and historical tensions in Black women's public lives and her own private life. She charts voyages from Black girlhood to womanhood and the currents buffeting these journeys, including the obstacles of racially gendered oppression, the challenges of documenting Black women's ancestry and the adultification of Black girls, the irony of Black female respectability politics, the origins of womanism, Black feminism, and resistance to white supremacy and patriarchy. As Jeffers shows with empathy and wisdom, naming difficult historical truths represent both blues and transcendence, a crossroads that speaks, etc. and whatnot. So again, I'll get to it at some point. I've talked about this book before. I'm not going to belabor it, but my friend Tony gifted me this book, The Belly of the Beast, The Politics of Anti-Fatness as Anti-Blackness by Deshawn L. Harrison. I don't know when I'm going to get to it. It's one of my fall books. I also was gifted by one of the senior scholars at my university in the history department, this book, Voodoo by Jefferson E. Anderson, and he laid it at my door because he'll be retiring in a few years. And he's like, with a very sweet note that said, I think you might be interested in this. And of course he is right, especially because I'm preparing class on Black magical traditions. So that is great. My last two books I'll kind of talk about together. So one is From Harlem to Paris, Black American Writers in France from 1840 to 1980. And this is for my studies on Black expatriation, especially artists expatriating to places like Paris and what that means for creativity and Blackness and things like that. Because I study people like James Baldwin, and I'm writing a paper or revising a paper about Baldwin. And then I got The Cross of Redemption, which is a set of his uncollected writings. And for those of you who don't know Baldwin as the public critical thinker, he isn't a prolific essayist. So I'm really looking forward to this. And in it, he talks about the hypocrisy of American religious fundamentalism, the Black church in America, Black nationalism, anti-Semitism, the blues, boxing, Russian literary masters, and the role of the writer in our society. So hell yeah, we're going to get into that, and that's going to be a great time. I did good. Like I said, a lot of these books that I got are academic-y type books. If that's your vibe, of course, you know, I would suggest any of these, even though I haven't read all of them, but I'm excited to read them. Now, as always, friends, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend about the channel. I will see you in the next one. Bye.